Okay, welcome to the lesson on energy and energy transformations. So the first thing we're going to talk about is energy transfer. Energy can be transferred from one location to another. In other words, it is moved from one object to another object or from one place to another place. For example, a pot is sitting on a stove. Thermal energy from the stove is moved from the stove to the pot and then into the water inside the pot. So the energy stays the same, but it's just moving from the stove to the pot to the water. So energy can move from one location to another. Next, we're going to talk about energy transformations. Energy can also be transformed from one type into another type of energy. For example, a bulb changes electrical energy into radiant energy. In other words, it takes electricity and changes it into light. An equation can be used to describe the energy transformation of a device. For example, a light bulb, the energy transformation would be electrical to radiant. So the arrow indicates that a transformation has occurred. You've changed the energy. The energy to the left of the arrow is called the input energy, and the energy to the right of the arrow is called the output energy. The input energy is written to the left of the arrow. The output energy is written to the right of the arrow. Input energy is the starting energy in any energy transformation. It's the energy that's used to power the device. So usually when you plug something in, it uses electricity. That's usually the input energy, but it's not always electricity. It can be other types of energy. For a bulb, the input energy was the electrical energy. Output energy is a form of energy that results from the energy transformation. It's what is created or produced by the device. In a light bulb, the output energy is the radiant energy produced. Law of conservation of energy. The total energy of any system remains constant during energy transfer or energy transformation. So the universe is considered to have a set amount of energy. It's always been there, and that amount of energy can never be reduced or increased. It's always the same amount. The only thing that can happen with energy is that it can be transferred from one spot to another, or it can change forms in an energy transformation. But the amount of energy in a transformation stays constant before and after the transformation. So energy, we say, can neither be created or destroyed. All of the input energy must be converted into output energy. Energy cannot completely change form from one form to another. Some energy is always given off in the form of heat. So, for example, with a car, you're changing gasoline into mechanical energy. So, you're changing the chemical energy of gasoline into the movement of the car, which is mechanical energy. Ideally, you would want all of the energy of the gasoline to be converted into movement of the car. But some of the energy, when you have moving parts, some of the energy changes into heat. And that heat is basically wasted energy. It's inefficient and it's not needed or wanted, but it's unavoidable. So sometimes heat is, or almost always, there's always a little bit of heat or a lot of heat that is produced in an energy transformation. So for example, when a light bulb shines, some of the input energy is converted into heat. You can feel the bulb warming up. The primary purpose of a light bulb is to produce light. The heat energy is unwanted and considered a waste of energy. This is why scientists are always trying to create energy efficient light bulbs. So if you ever go to the store to buy bulbs with your mom or dad, you'll notice that they have energy efficient light bulbs now. Those are bulbs that produce less heat, and so most of your energy of electricity is converted into light, and that's what you want. You don't want wasted energy because it's a waste of money and it's a waste of energy. So the more efficient something is, the higher the efficiency, the more it's going to convert electrical energy into light, and the less heat is going to be produced. Units of energy. Energy is measured in units called joules. 1 joule is about the energy needed to lift an apple 1 meter above the ground. So if you ever take an apple and lift it about a meter above the ground, the amount of energy your body is exerting is about 1 joule. Total joules of energy transferred or transformed must be constant. In other words, total joules of input energy must equal total joules of output energy. And that is because of the law of conservation of energy. Energy cannot be created or destroyed. It must all be accounted for. So for example, if a light bulb uses 200 joules of input energy in the form of electricity and produces 150 joules of light energy, then it must produce 50 joules of heat energy or thermal energy. The total must stay constant. Energy cannot disappear or appear out of nowhere. And new energy cannot be created. It must be transformed from another form of energy. Here are some examples of energy transformations. So an automobile, let me just change my pen color. So an automobile converts chemical energy into mechanical energy and heat. We're going to talk about this a little bit later, but a tree changes radiant energy into chemical energy during a process called photosynthesis. Hammering a nail changes mechanical energy, that's the movement of the hammer, into heat energy because the nail warms up when it goes into the wood. A thermonuclear reaction changes nuclear energy into radiant energy, and that's the energy that's produced in the sun. The sun has basically splits apart hydrogen atoms, and all of the energy inside the nucleus is changed into radiant energy and heat energy. An electric mixer changes electrical energy into mechanical energy, and some heat is given off, but the primary energy transformation is electrical to mechanical. So anything plugged in is using electricity as the input energy, and then in this case it's turning the blades, and so that is mechanical energy. So it's electrical to mechanical. A lamp, it changes electrical energy into radiant energy, as we talked about before. The headlights of a car, the input energy is the chemical energy in the car battery, and the output energies are light energy and thermal energy. So the car battery produces electricity for the headlight, and then the headlight gives off light and heat. So this diagram just shows that those energy transformations. So the battery is the input energy for the lamp, and it goes in as electrical energy. And then the lamp produces light energy and thermal energy or heat. So it produces two forms of energy. And again, the thermal energy is unwanted. This is something we don't want, but it's produced because of moving parts that cause friction which always results in some heat. And in this diagram, you can see a light bulb attached to a battery. So the battery has chemical energy, and it changes that to electricity, which travels through the wires. So the electrical energy powers the light bulb. The electricity goes through the filament in the light bulb and warms up. That gives off light and heat, and that is what is produced. An energy source is a substance or object that provides the input energy. Examples of energy sources are hydroelectric, solar, geothermal, nuclear, fossil fuels, wind, biomass, and tidal. These are all the energy sources that you are researching in your project, and these are examples of energy sources found on Earth. The primary source of all energy on Earth is from the sun. The sun is responsible for all other energy sources except for geothermal. For example, the sun warms the air, causing convection currents, which results in wind energy. Geothermal is not powered by the sun because geothermal energy comes from the burning of the Earth's core, which has been burning for billions of years when the Earth first formed. And that energy did not come from the sun. It's from the heat that's produced at the core of the Earth. The sun doesn't reach the core of the Earth, so it's not caused by the sun. But all other forms of energy are responsible by the sun. Next, we're going to talk about photosynthesis. Photosynthesis is a process by which plants breathe in carbon dioxide, CO2, and take in water and produce glucose or carbohydrates or sugar, in other words, and they produce oxygen. This is the chemical equation that undergoes photosynthesis, that undergoes all plant life. And in order for this to happen, there's also an energy transformation that needs to take place. Solar energy from the sun has to be converted into chemical energy in the form of food, which is produced in the plants themselves, which is the glucose or sugar. So this just shows that again, light and water are needed for this process to occur, but the plant leaves take in carbon dioxide and they breathe out oxygen and they produce carbohydrates. During photosynthesis, plants breathe in carbon dioxide and combine it with water to produce glucose, sugar or carbohydrates, and oxygen. This chemical reaction cannot be possible without an important energy transformation. Sunlight or radiant energy is converted into carbohydrates or chemical energy. And this is the energy transformation that takes place during photosynthesis, radiant to chemical. Cellular respiration does not take place in plants, but takes place in animals such as ourselves, humans, and it's basically the opposite of photosynthesis. And it's basically the process by which we breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide. And in that process, the oxygen is mixed with food to produce heat energy. Without an important energy transformation, humans and other mammals would not be able to survive. During cellular respiration, chemical energy from food we eat is converted into thermal energy. So the chemical energy in the food we eat is converted into thermal energy, which is used to warm our bodies and to move and do other activities. And that process occurs in every cell of your body. Here's the chemical equation for photosynthesis. It's basically the opposite of, or sorry, this is the chemical equation for cellular respiration, and it's basically the opposite of photosynthesis. So glucose plus oxygen produces carbon dioxide and water. And during this process, chemical energy, which is in the form of glucose, is converted into thermal energy, which is released during the process. And that concludes the presentation.